The scorching Arizona sun beat down on Katherine Dawson's face as she swept the porch of Prescott's only apothecary, where she'd worked since her father died 3 months ago. In the sweltering summer of 1885, life for a 20-year-old woman without family meant endless labor and careful behavior. But Catherine Kate, to those few she allowed close, had been blessed with her mother's cheerful disposition, and despite her circumstances, a smile came naturally to her. "Afternoon, Miss Dawson," a deep voice called. Kate looked up, instinctively smiling at the customer. Her expression froze when she recognized Emmett Blackwell, the wealthiest rancher in the territory, and a man who expected to own everything he desired. At 45, his silver-streaked hair and expensive tailoring might have been handsome if not for the coldness in his eyes. "Mr. Blackwell," she acknowledged with a polite nod, quickly lowering her gaze and continuing her sweeping. "You ought to smile more often," he said, stepping closer. "It suits you." Kate clutched her broom tighter, heart racing. "Thank you, sir. Did you need something from the shop?" Blackwell studied her like she was livestock at auction. "Perhaps I do." She stepped aside to let him enter, but he lingered, too close for comfort. "Your employer speaks highly of your work. I understand you're quite knowledgeable about medicinal remedies." "Mr. Peterson has been kind enough to teach me," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "A woman with skills is valuable," Blackwell mused. "I've been considering acquiring more assets for my ranch." Before Kate could respond, the shop door opened, and elderly Mr. Peterson emerged. "Mr. Blackwell, what brings you to town?" Come in, come in." Kate exhaled with relief as Blackwell finally entered the shop. She continued sweeping, trying to calm her nerves. Something about the way he had looked at her sent chills down her spine despite the heat. 3 days later, Kate was organizing the new shipment of medicines when the bell above the door chimed. She turned with her customary smile, which quickly faded when Emmett Blackwell entered, followed by Sheriff Wilson. "There she is," Blackwell said. "The thief." Kate's blood ran cold. "I beg your pardon." Sheriff Wilson looked uncomfortable but determined. "Miss Dawson, Mr. Blackwell claims you stole a gold pocket watch from him when he visited earlier this week." "That's preposterous," Kate exclaimed. "I've stolen nothing." Mr. Peterson hurried from the back room. "There must be some mistake, Sheriff. Catherine is honest as the day is long." "I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding," the sheriff said, but his eyes held resignation. "But I need to search the premises and, if necessary, Miss Dawson's lodgings." Despite Kate's protests, they ransacked her small room above the shop. To her horror, Sheriff Wilson pulled a gleaming gold watch from beneath her mattress. "That isn't mine," she cried. "I've never seen it before." "It has my initials," Blackwell said smugly, taking the watch. "E.B. Right here." Kate's world collapsed around her. She knew she'd been set up, but her word against Blackwell's was worthless. The trial was a mockery of justice. No one would testify against Blackwell, who owned half the businesses in town through loans and investments. Even Mr. Peterson, who privately believed in her innocence, couldn't risk his livelihood for a shop girl. The judge, another man in Blackwell's pocket, gave Kate a choice: 6 months in territorial prison or payment of a $50 fine she could never afford. "I cannot in good conscience send such a young woman to prison," the judge announced with false benevolence. "Therefore, I sentence her to work off her debt through indentured service to the wronged party, Mr. Blackwell, for a period of 1 year." Kate gasped. "No." But her protests fell on deaf ears as Blackwell smiled triumphantly. Everyone in the courtroom knew what had just happened. She had been sold into virtual slavery for the crime of catching a powerful man's eye. 2 days later, Kate sat rigid in Blackwell's carriage as they traveled to his ranch 10 miles outside of town. She wore her only good dress, a faded blue cotton with darned sleeves, and clutched a small bundle containing her few possessions. "You'll find I can be generous to those who please me," Blackwell said, his eyes roaming over her. "Your duties will primarily involve tending to the household and assisting my wife with her various ailments." Kate's head snapped up. "Your wife?" Blackwell laughed. "Did you think I lived alone? Alina is often unwell, which is why I require additional help. She rarely leaves her rooms these days." A sliver of hope pierced Kate's despair. Perhaps with Mrs. Blackwell present, her situation wouldn't be as dire as she feared. The ranch came into view, an imposing two-story house surrounded by outbuildings and corrals that stretched for acres. A dozen cowboys worked with cattle in the distance, while closer to the house, servants went about their duties. A stern-faced housekeeper named Mrs. Collins showed Kate to a tiny room off the kitchen. "You'll be up at 5 to help prepare breakfast. Mr. Blackwell expects his coffee precisely at 6. After that, you'll attend to Mrs. Blackwell until dinner preparations." "When might I meet Mrs. Blackwell?" Kate asked. Mrs. Collins' expression tightened. "The mistress keeps to herself. She's fragile." That night, exhausted from the journey and stress, Kate finally allowed herself to cry, muffling her sobs with her thin pillow. How had smiling at a man led to this nightmare? She resolved that Emmett Blackwell would never see her smile again. Days passed in a grueling routine. Kate rose before dawn, worked until late evening, and collapsed into bed, only to start again. She caught glimpses of cowboys coming and going, but was kept strictly to the house and garden. Mrs. Blackwell remained a mystery. Kate was told the woman was too ill for visitors, though she prepared trays that Mrs. Collins took upstairs. On her 10th day at the ranch, Kate was gathering herbs in the kitchen garden when a tall figure on horseback approached from the range. The rider dismounted gracefully, leading his chestnut horse toward the stables. Dust covered his clothes, and a worn hat shaded his face until he looked up, revealing striking blue eyes that widened at the sight of her. "You're new," he said, his voice deep but gentle. Kate straightened, brushing soil from her apron. "I work for the household now." The cowboy removed his hat, revealing tousled dark blonde hair. He was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps 25, with sun-weathered skin and a straight nose that had clearly been broken once. "Tucker Sullivan," he introduced himself with a slight bow. "I manage the ranch hands for Mr. Blackwell." "Katherine Dawson," she replied stiffly, not offering her hand. His eyes were kind as they studied her. "You don't seem like the typical help Blackwell hires." Before Kate could respond, Mrs. Collins called sharply from the kitchen door. "Miss Dawson, you're needed inside. Mr. Sullivan, the master, is looking for you." Kate hurried away, feeling Tucker's gaze follow her. That evening, Kate was scrubbing pots in the kitchen when she overheard Blackwell and Tucker in the study across the hall. "The north pasture needs clearing before winter," Tucker was saying. "We'll need at least 5 men for a week." "Take what you need," Blackwell replied. "Just make sure that new stallion is broken properly. I paid good money for him." "Speaking of new additions," Tucker said carefully, "I met your latest house servant today." A pause. "Miss Dawson is working off a debt to society, a thief, regrettably, but one with useful skills." Kate's hands tightened on the pot she was scrubbing. The lie burned in her chest. "She doesn't strike me as a thief," Tucker said, his tone neutral. "Appearances deceive, Sullivan. Remember your place. I didn't elevate you from cowhand to foreman for your opinions on my household matters." "Of course, sir. My apologies." The conversation moved on to cattle prices, but Kate's mind raced. Tucker hadn't seemed convinced by Blackwell's story. Perhaps there was one person here who might believe the truth. The following Sunday, Kate was granted 2 hours leisure after church. While the other servants napped or wrote letters, she wandered toward the stable, drawn by the peaceful sounds of horses. She hadn't expected to find Tucker there, brushing down a magnificent black stallion. He looked up, surprise flashing across his face before a smile appeared. "Miss Dawson." "Enjoying your free time, as much as one can," she replied cautiously. Tucker continued brushing the horse. "This is Midnight. Blackwell imported him from Kentucky at great expense, but no one can ride him. I've been given the delightful task of changing that." Despite herself, Kate approached the stall. "He's beautiful." "He is," Tucker agreed, "and smart enough to know when someone means him harm." He gave her a meaningful look. "Animals have good instincts about people," Kate swallowed hard, "as do some humans." "I reckon that's true." Tucker set down the brush and leaned against the stall door. "I heard you're from Prescott. I have business there next week." "It's a fine town," Kate said neutrally, though her heart ached thinking of her lost freedom. "I also heard you're working off a theft charge," he said quietly. "Funny thing is, I've known 3 other young women who supposedly stole from Blackwell over the years." Kate's pulse quickened. "Is that so? All pretty, all alone in the world, all brought here to work off their debt?" His blue eyes held hers. "None stayed longer than a few months before disappearing. Blackwell claimed they ran off." Cold fear gripped Kate. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you don't smile, Miss Dawson." Tucker's voice was soft but intense. "A genuine thief caught in the act might be angry, defiant, even ashamed. But you look like someone who's had something precious stolen from them." Tears welled in Kate's eyes. She blinked them back fiercely. "Mr. Blackwell placed a watch under my mattress because I smiled at him in town. He wanted me here." Tucker nodded grimly. "I suspected as much, Mrs. Blackwell," Kate whispered. "Is she real? I prepare her meals but never see her." Tucker's expression darkened. "Eleanor Blackwell exists, but she hasn't left her room in 3 years. The servants say she went mad after her 3rd miscarriage. Others whisper she saw too much of her husband's true nature." "I need to leave," Kate said urgently. Before you end up like the others," Tucker finished. "I can help you, but we must be careful. Blackwell would kill us both." A door slammed in the distance and Kate jumped. "Go," Tucker said quickly. "We can't be seen talking. When the moon is new next week, be ready. I'll find a way." Kate hurried back toward the house, heart pounding with fear and the first faint stirrings of hope. For the next week, Kate was careful to appear meek and resigned. She answered Blackwell's increasingly personal questions with monosyllables, kept her eyes downcast, and performed her duties with efficiency. But inside, anticipation built with each passing day. Tucker managed to pass her brief messages, a folded note tucked into a basket of apples, a whispered word while passing in the yard. A plan was forming. He would take her to his sister's home in Colorado, where Blackwell had no influence. 3 days before the new moon, disaster struck. Kate was dusting the library when Blackwell entered, locking the door behind him. "Katherine," he said, his voice slick as oil, "you've settled in well." She curtsied slightly, backing away. "Thank you, sir. I've been patient," he continued, following her. "Given you time to adjust to your circumstances. But now I think it's time we discussed your additional duties." "Sir," Kate's voice trembled despite her efforts to remain calm. Blackwell reached for her, grabbing her wrist. "Don't play innocent. You know why you're here." Kate pulled away, knocking over a vase that shattered on the hardwood floor. "No, I won't." The library door rattled, followed by urgent knocking. "Mr. Blackwell," came Tucker's voice. "There's trouble with the new stallion. He's injured one of the hands badly." Blackwell cursed, releasing Kate. "This isn't finished," he hissed before unlocking the door. Tucker stood there, hat in hand, expression carefully neutral though his eyes flicked to Kate's frightened face. "Sorry to interrupt, sir, but Jenkins might lose his arm if we don't get help." "Get the doctor from town," Blackwell snapped. "And for God's sake, control that animal or shoot it." As Blackwell strode out, Tucker caught Kate's eye, a silent message passing between them. "It's time." That night, Kate stuffed her few belongings into a pillowcase and waited, heart racing at every sound. Shortly after midnight, a soft tap came at her window. Tucker stood outside, holding the reins of 2 horses. "Now," he whispered as she slipped out. "Mrs. Collins saw Blackwell heading to your room. We don't have much time." They mounted quickly, Tucker leading them away from the main trail toward the mountains. They had barely reached the tree line when shouts erupted from the ranch house, followed by the barking of dogs. "Ride," Tucker urged, and they spurred their horses forward into the darkness. They rode hard through the night, stopping only to rest the horses. By dawn, they had reached a small cabin hidden in a pine forest. "My hunting lodge," Tucker explained as they dismounted. "No one knows about it except my friend Thomas, who owns the land. We can rest here before continuing tomorrow." Inside, Tucker lit a small fire while Kate collapsed onto a rough wooden chair, exhaustion finally catching up with her. "Why are you risking everything to help me?" she asked. Tucker's hand stilled as he added kindling to the flames. "Because I've stood by too long watching Blackwell destroy lives. Because—" He turned to face her. "The moment I saw you in that garden, something told me you were worth saving." "And your position, your livelihood," Tucker shrugged. "I've been saving to buy my own spread for years. Was nearly ready to make an offer on a place near my sister in Colorado." He smiled ruefully. "Might have to work as a hand again for a while, but I'll manage." For the first time since her ordeal began, Kate felt the corners of her mouth turn upward. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. They slept in shifts, wary of pursuit. By mid-morning, Tucker was saddling the horses for the next leg of their journey when hoofbeats approached. He pushed Kate inside the cabin. "Stay hidden," he ordered, drawing his revolver. 3 riders emerged from the trees, Blackwell and 2 of his men. Blackwell's face contorted with rage when he spotted Tucker. "Sullivan, you treacherous dog," he shouted, dismounting. "Where is she?" Tucker stood his ground, gun steady. "Go back, Blackwell. She's not your property." Blackwell laughed mirthlessly. "The law says otherwise. The girl is serving her sentence under my supervision." "A sentence based on lies," Tucker replied. "How many women have you falsely accused? How many disappeared after they served your needs?" One of Blackwell's men shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. "You're throwing away your future for a thief," Blackwell said coldly. "I made you, Sullivan. I can break you just as easily." "You can try," Tucker replied. Blackwell's hand moved to his gun, but Tucker was faster, firing a warning shot into the ground at Blackwell's feet. "Next one won't miss," he warned. "Now get back on your horse and leave." "This isn't over," Blackwell snarled, but he remounted his horse. "I have friends in every territory." "You'll never be safe." "Maybe not," Tucker agreed. "But neither will you if anything happens to us. I've written down everything I know about those missing women. My sister has the letters to be opened if I don't arrive safely." Blackwell's face paled slightly. "You're bluffing." "Care to find out?" Tucker's voice was steel. "Now ride out." With a final venomous glare, Blackwell wheeled his horse around. "This isn't the end, Sullivan." They watched until the 3 riders disappeared, then Tucker exhaled shakily. "We need to move. That won't hold him for long." Kate emerged from the cabin, face drawn but determined. "I'm ready." They rode hard for 3 days, taking back trails and sleeping rough, always alert for pursuit. On the 4th day, they reached a small town on the Colorado border and paid for rooms at the local hotel separately, to avoid scandal. "We should be safe here tonight," Tucker said as they ate a simple dinner in the hotel's dining room. "Tomorrow we'll catch the train to Denver, then on to my sister's place." Kate studied him across the table. "You've given up everything for me." Tucker shook his head. "Not everything. Not what matters," he hesitated. "Kate, I need to ask you something important." She tensed, waiting. "Would you consider—" He swallowed hard. "That is, would you do me the honor of smiling, just once for me?" Of all the things she'd expected him to say, this wasn't it. A startled laugh escaped her, and with it came the smile she'd withheld for so long. Not the polite curve of lips she'd given customers, but a genuine expression that reached her eyes. Tucker's breath caught. "Beautiful," he murmured. "Worth every risk." In that moment, something shifted between them. No longer just rescuer and rescued, but two people seeing each other clearly for the first time. The train journey to Denver passed without incident, though both remained vigilant. From there, they took a stagecoach to the small ranching town of Pine Creek, where Tucker's sister Hannah lived with her husband and 3 children. Hannah Sullivan Fletcher welcomed them with open arms, her resemblance to Tucker clear in her blue eyes and ready smile. "So this is the woman worth throwing away a foreman's position for," she teased, hugging Kate. "About time my brother showed some sense." "Hannah," Tucker protested, ears reddening. His sister laughed. "Oh, hush. I've been telling you to leave Blackwell's employ for years. Now come in and tell us everything." Over the next week, Kate gradually relaxed into the warm embrace of the Fletcher household. Hannah's husband James owned a modest but successful cattle operation, and their children ages 10, 8, and 5 quickly adopted Kate as a favorite aunt. Tucker stayed in the bunkhouse with the other hands, riding out each day to help with the cattle and search for land of his own. Each evening, he and Kate would walk together after dinner, sharing stories and dreams as spring blossomed around them. "Blackwell will eventually realize we've left the territory," Kate said one evening as they stood by a small creek on the property. "What then?" Tucker took her hand gently. "I've sent letters to the territorial marshal and the governor detailing Blackwell's crimes. James has friends in Denver who are helping. It may take time, but he won't get away with this forever." Kate turned to face him, moonlight silvering her features. "And us? What becomes of us when this is over?" Tucker's fingers tightened around hers. "That depends on you, Kate. I've found 80 acres for sale with a small house and good water. Not much compared to Blackwell's spread, but enough to start." "It sounds perfect," she whispered. "It would be," he agreed, "with you there." He drew a shaky breath. "I know it's soon, and you've had no chance to consider other prospects, but I love you, Katherine Dawson. I think I began falling for you the moment I saw you in that garden, refusing to smile for a man who'd stolen your freedom." Tears sprang to Kate's eyes. "Tucker." "You don't need to answer now," he said quickly. "Take all the time." Kate pressed her fingers to his lips. "I love you too. How could I not? You risked everything for a woman you barely knew." "I knew enough," Tucker said, drawing her closer. "I knew you were strong and brave and true." Their first kiss was gentle, a promise exchanged under spring stars. 2 months later, word reached them that Emmett Blackwell had been arrested. 3 former servants had come forward with stories matching Kate's, and a search of his property had uncovered damning evidence of his crimes. His wife, finally free of his control, had confirmed everything. On a perfect June day in 1886, Katherine Dawson married Tucker Sullivan on the porch of their new home. Hannah had helped sew a wedding dress of ivory satin, and wildflowers crowned Kate's dark hair. As they exchanged vows before a small gathering of friends and family, Kate's smile outshone the sun. "I never thought I'd smile again," she told Tucker as they danced under lantern light that evening. "He took that from me too." "No," Tucker corrected gently. You kept it safe, waiting for someone worthy. He spun her around, her laughter rising into the twilight. And I intend to earn that smile every day for the rest of our lives. 5 years later, the Sullivan Ranch had prospered. Tucker's knowledge of cattle breeding had paid off, and Kate's skill with medicinal herbs had grown into a small but thriving business supplying remedies to neighboring communities. On the porch of their expanded home, Kate sat rocking their 2-year-old daughter Alina, named for Tucker's mother. Their 4-year-old son James played with wooden horses nearby. Tucker came up from the corral, dusty but grinning. The new foals are doing well, he reported, leaning down to kiss his wife. Strong as their mother. Kate smiled up at him, the expression as natural as breathing now. Like all of us, I think, strong when we need to be. Tucker settled beside her, watching the sunset paint the land they'd built together. You know what today is, Kate nodded. 5 years since I first smiled for you. Best reward I ever earned, he said, taking her hand. As darkness fell gently over their home, Kate reflected on the journey that had brought her here. A smile given to the wrong man had nearly destroyed her, but a smile saved for the right one had created a life more beautiful than she had ever dared to hope for.